So, how to become a web designer?
Let's find out.
Hello, I'm your host Casino. I'm the Digital Alchemist, and in this video, I'm going to talk about how to become a web designer. So we go from step 1 to the last step. Now, before we start, 2 points. Well, the first one is the fact that everything I'm going to talk about, you could actually find it in an online school or in a regular school or in a course. And it doesn't really matter which way you do it. You could even learn it just by yourself. So it's impossible for me to cover each and every case. So I'm just going to give you all the steps. And if you mix it and match it with courses, online school, and the stuff you do yourself, it doesn't really matter. And 2, behind the term web design, many people have a different meaning. For some people, a web designer is just someone that's going to prepare the graphics, is going to make the mock-ups of the layout of the website and the design, of course. And then they're going to transfer that to the front-end developer. And that's totally fine. Initially, that was and still is the definition of a web designer. But nowadays, when we say web designer, we also think about people that can create a website from start to finish on WordPress or Webflow. And as such, there are some notions of code. So I will talk about more of a hybrid profile, a web designer, developer, which sometimes I call a web developer. So that's what I'll be talking about in this video. Now, if you're a pure web designer, then you can just skip the parts about code. Like I said, I advise you to actually watch it. And if you're a hybrid, then I believe that's going to help you to see all the various steps involved from start to actually getting your first web design job, or maybe you're going to start freelancing. But once again, I actually advise you to start with a job, even if it's just for 6 months or a year, so that you can get some corporate experience that's going to teach you a lot for your future career. Ready? Let's dive in. 1. Learn the basics of a graphic design software. Could be Photoshop, could be Affinity Photo, which I like very much. Could be the Gimp, which is completely free. It doesn't really matter what you use, but don't use Paint. Please, don't use MS Paint. And I'm not talking about becoming a wizard or an expert and knowing everything about, this type of tools, because nobody actually knows everything about those tools. But I'm just talking about the basics, how to use the tools, how to quickly craft a visual. You need to know and you need to practice. And even though web design has changed a lot through the years, at core, a web designer should know one of these tools. And it's actually going to help you a little bit later in the process, because if you ever use prototyping tool, which I'm not going to cover in this video, but if you ever use prototyping tool, well, the principles are the same. So really, you want to get acquainted with using this type of tools. So really what you want to do is get familiar with one of these tools, and it's going to help you with all of those tools, which, like I said, have very similar features. Next, learn HTML and CSS. Oh, okay, I see you.
You're pissed off.
You're a pure web designer and you don't want to hear about code. Well, what if I told you that if you learn HTML and CSS, you'll be able to design with just a few lines, make some quick adjustments in the final website. And even though this did not convince you, trust me, just trust me, you need to know basic HTML and CSS. It's going to help you tremendously, especially if you want to become your own boss one of these days and start freelancing. And by the way, it's very, very easy. So where do you learn HTML and CSS? Well, you can learn it here on YouTube. There are many videos and tutorials where you can just learn the basics completely for free. Otherwise, there are many websites giving you free ways to learn HTML and CSS. Now, if you want a streamlined way of working, I recommend Team Treehouse. Now, to be crystal clear, this video is not sponsored by Team Treehouse, but I'm going to recommend it a lot just because I've used it in the past and it has helped me a lot. In my opinion, it's more for beginners to intermediary, but it's really a nice way of learning. Now, I do have an affiliate link in the description below, but that means that if you do enroll after clicking on my link, I do get a commission. But honestly, you don't even have to click if you don't want to. No one forces you to. And honestly, I'm just talking about Team Treehouse because I'm trying to help. And if I have to recommend a resource, I'd rather recommend a resource that I know of because I've tried it. Now, do I say it's the best thing in the world? Not necessarily, but it was good enough for me to get me started, put me on the right track, and I enjoyed that method. Now, I believe they have a trial, so you can try for free for a few days, and if you don't like it, you just, you don't have to go with it. But like I said, you can learn totally free here on YouTube, or just Google it and you find many resources. It's hard for me to recommend one, but if I find one that's good enough, I will put it in the description. Now, in case you didn't know, HTML is what you're going to be using to structure the information on your page, and CSS is what you're going to be using to style your page. So HTML is like the body and CSS is like the clothes, the fancy clothes you put on that body. Next, learn basic JavaScript. And I know, I'm guilty because I need to get better at JavaScript. But I did my homework. So initially when I was getting started, I just learned the basics of JavaScript. And that's gonna help you when you need to troubleshoot some code with the inspector, or you want to implement a script in your project and you just need to know what's going on. So I'm not talking about becoming a full stack developer, a JavaScript developer, although I believe there are a lot of opportunities if you want to do that because JS is all the rage. But what I'm talking about here is at least knowing the basics. So once again, it's going to be the same resources you can learn here for free. There's a free tutorial on Free Code Camp channel, which I've talked about in a previous video. I haven't followed it myself, but it's a channel that has like 2 million subscribers, and the video is like 3.5 hours and many positive comments. So if you test it and if you like it, just let me know. But that's one of the resources you can use. Otherwise, you can use, guess what? Team Treehouse. But you could also use lynda.com, Udemy. Once again, I have a little bit less experience with those platforms. So pick the one that you prefer. Most of these platforms, they have free trials anyway. Next, learn basic PHP and MySQL. Now, where did you go? I did not want to scare you. I'm not talking about becoming a full PHP, MySQL expert wizard that can do pretty much anything. Although just like JavaScript, if you want to do that, there are a lot of opportunities, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about knowing how PHP works. I'm talking about knowing how to connect to a database. Now you may tell me,
listen, I'm just going to work with WordPress or Webflow or whatever. I don't need all of that.
Well, if you know how PHP and MySQL works, you'll be able to troubleshoot the inevitable bugs that you'll get on your WordPress powered website. But not only that, you'll be able to create some stuff, some custom things when you need it, even if you're not really gonna code, but you're just gonna use some tools. Well, there's a tool like Jet Engine for WordPress from the CrocoBlock company. It's actually for Elementor and WordPress, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later in the video. Well, in this tool, you can also use partly some code. And when you understand the relationship between PHP and MySQL and how to create a custom query, it's really gonna help you tremendously. So once again, you don't have to become an expert. Just maybe do one project, learn just the basics, and once you grasp it, you understand it, you can still look it up on the internet for a quick reference, but at least you will know what you're talking about. More power to you. Next, learn WordPress. Now, if you're watching this video, chances are you already know WordPress, but you may want to know more about WordPress. And for that, I only recommend YouTube. I wouldn't even pay for a course because honestly, you'll find so many great videos here on YouTube that you can just type WordPress beginner, how to learn WordPress. Now, at the time of recording this video, I have not created a video dedicated to WordPress just because there are so many good ones already that honestly, I didn't know what I was going to add. Now, WordPress is constantly changing, so I might do one in the future. But for the time being, like people say, Google is your friend, well, YouTube is going to be
Your best friend.
Next, learn a theme builder for WordPress. Now, in case you don't know, a theme builder is actually a plugin that allows you to create some pages, but also to style parts of your WordPress theme. So if you know WordPress, you install WordPress, then you have to install a theme most of the time because there are some exceptions with the Oxygen builder, if I'm correct. But most of the time you just install a WordPress theme, and I often recommend the Astra theme because that's the one I know. I do have the pro version, but you can get started with the free version, which is amazing in my opinion. Even the free version for a lot of projects, it's good enough. So once you get that, the theme builder is gonna come as a plugin where you can style parts of your theme. So if I take the case of the Astra, but it would work with any theme, I could change the header and the footer and style it exactly the way I want with a visual drag and drop editor. Now I could do the same for the 404 pages, the search pages, the archive pages, WooCommerce, you name it. Now there are many WordPress theme builders like Elementor Pro, Divi, Thrive Theme Builder, Beaver Builder, Oxygen, and I probably forgot a few. Now the one I recommend at the time of recording this video is Elementor Pro. And if you want to know why, just check the card somewhere here or check the link in the description below. Now, if you want to get Elementor Pro, I've put an affiliate link in the description below. It means that I do get a commission if you purchase after clicking on my link, but I only recommend it because I absolutely love the product and use it each and every day. And by the way, you find also a link to all my recommended resources in the description of this video. So where can you learn how to use theme builders? Well, most of the theme builders, they already have video documentation. So if I take Elementor, Divi, I mean, all of them, they have video documentation. Most of the time it's here on YouTube. Check their channel, they have great tutorials. Now, specifically about Elementor Pro, I've created quite a few tutorials here on the channel. So make sure you check the playlist and the rest of the videos because I have a lot of videos on the subject. Now, you'll find many channels here on YouTube. And if you want to learn how to create dynamic websites with WordPress and Elementor Pro, I recommend WP Tuts. And if you don't know what dynamic websites are, well, after you learn the little bit of PHP and MySQL that I talked about previously in the video, you will know what I'm talking about. So make sure you check that channel and thank me later. Next, O.R.C.
O.R.C?
Observe, reproduce, create. So what you want to do at this stage with all the stuff that you learned is you want to go on showcase galleries for web design. And one of the most famous one is the awards website. So what I want you to do next is pick a few simple ones because you will find some really complex and complicated website. It's not the ones I'm talking about. I'm talking about really simple ones, but really looking minimal and beautiful. So observe and have a list. Could be a node if you have Evernote or Notejoy or whatever. It could just be the notepad or text, whatever. Make a list each and every month. Actually, each and every week I spend, I don't know, from 15 minutes to 1 hour just browsing through those type of galleries and make my list of my favorite ones. So that's the observation phase. And I write why they made it to the list. I would just put keywords like minimal, beautiful, e-commerce, modern, I don't know. I would just put some keywords. Next, I will pick one that I'm confident I can try to reproduce. And I will go through the step. Maybe I will not reproduce the whole website because at this stage, especially if you're a beginner, that's going to take you months. But it could be, okay, I'm just going to reproduce the footer. They have a nice footer. Or I'm just going to reproduce the homepage. Or I like the contact page. You get the idea. And once you've done that a few times and you're starting to feel more confident about your skills, now is the time to start creating something of your own, which is precisely what our next point is about. Next, create your website. So with everything that you learned, you should now be able to create a beautiful website presenting yourself and your services. Now, don't aim for perfection. You know, this is something we're all guilty of and it's going to be hard to fight that, but don't spend like 6 months to create your website. I've seen some people take a year, even 2 years to create a website. You don't want that. Give yourself a deadline, like 1 month maximum. And at the beginning, you don't have much to say anyway. It's going to be presenting yourself, having a nice homepage, showing your skills or letting people know what skills you have, and maybe show a few concepts because at this stage, you don't have a portfolio yet. So what you want is a minimum viable product. You just want 1 page or a couple of pages. And then when you create your portfolio, which we're going to talk about, then you're going to add the portfolio to the website. But in order to get the portfolio, you need to first have your own website that you can actually show people. It's going to give you some credibility. So you could code your website from scratch, you could use Webflow, you could use anything you want. On this channel, I'm going to recommend WordPress because that's what I know, that's what I use every day. I will use the combo WordPress plus the Astra theme plus Elementor, or it could be WordPress, Astra Pro, Elementor Pro. It's up to you really, but even just with the free versions, you can create beautiful, beautiful websites. So that's the idea. You need to have your website. Don't spend ages. Give yourself a month, for example, and just give you that deadline, work on it, have that minimum viable product, and then you can hop onto our next point. Next, create a portfolio. Now, how do you do that? Well, I'm not gonna spend too much time explaining how to do it because I've already done it in many videos and I have a detailed video that will be coming up. I can't tell when, but I will really go extensively on the topic. But if you're interested, I'll put a link in the description below and also probably in the card up there. So you can just go and check what I've already talked about. But in a nutshell, you want 3 websites minimum to get started. And actually 3 websites is good enough to get started. You don't really need more. Now, if you have more and all the items in your portfolio are really something beautiful that it's going to help you get some leads, then fine. But just get started with 3. That's going to be enough work for a start. So why is a portfolio so crucial? Well, simply because whether you want to be employed or you want to go freelance, this is actually what's going to help people decide whether they want to work with you or not. So a potential employer is not really going to care about your degree, to be honest. And even if you have a resume where you lay out all your skills, of course, first they're going to be impressed, but then either they're going to make you go through some tests or they're going to ask you, what have you built? What have you worked on? Can we see your work? Because in our industry, people, honestly, they don't really care about your degree. Now, of course, in big companies, big corporations, or if you work in the public service, the degree might be a way to screen the applications. But once you get past that, even if you have the best degree with mentions and everything, but if what you produce is not good, most of the time you're not going to get a job unless you're the only one or the other ones are worst. And this is not really something you'd be proud of. So what you want to work on is your skills. And what can show your skills better than a degree? You guessed it.
Your portfolio.
Because think about it. Even if you don't have the qualifications, but you manage to send a link to your portfolio to a potential employer, well, he has a decision there. Either he or she can recruit someone that has a degree from a good school and everything, but when they look at their portfolio, they don't feel confident that they could use that person as a valuable team member that could actually work with clients. And on the other hand, they see your portfolio, and this is something they can start selling from day one. They know that if they integrate you in their team, you're an asset. And if you want to go the freelance route, then the portfolio is simply essential because nobody's going to hire you if they cannot see your work and you're just getting started. So do yourself a favor and create a beautiful portfolio. And next, it's time to actually get started in your career. So if you want to be employed, that's where you're going to start sending your resume, showing your portfolio. But actually, what I recommend is that you try to aim for an agency. It's going to be stressful, but in 1 year in an agency, it's like you spend 5 to 10 years somewhere else because you're going to work with so many clients, so many different industries. It's really going to teach you so much. Or you can get started freelancing, and I'm not going to talk about that now because I've created, guess what? A few videos on the subject. So I'll put some links in the description below, and maybe I'll put the link here in the card up there. So I hope that you got value out of this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up as it really helps growing this channel. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe and smash the notification bell so that you don't miss anything, especially not all those videos on web design, freelancing, and also some tutorials. Oh, and by the way, if you want to create a beautiful brand identity, I've created the brand identity guidelines template that you can download from my website for free. Initially, it was made for Affinity Designer, but you can use it with Adobe Illustrator with a workaround. So if you're interested, just go to kesine.com/branding. So that's it for this video. I hope to see you in the next one. And in the meantime, don't forget to invest
In your success.